Welcome to the Hop Nerd Sideshow, your behind-the-scenes guide to everything happening in the Hop Nerd podcast and the Hop Nerd LLC. Welcome. Hello, howdy, everybody. Sam Goodman, your host of the Hop Nerd Sideshow and the main podcast, obviously. I hope, obviously, the Hop Nerd podcast. If you're not tuned in over at the Hop Nerd podcast, tune in and drop out by clicking subscribe, follow, like, all that kind of sort of stuff. Make sure that you cruise over to the website to learn more about the Hop Nerd and to check out all the cool fancy pants merch that we got cracking over there at the Hop Nerd shop. And make sure you scroll down to the bottom, www.thehopnerd.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page, click join the mailing list. You can catch when new episodes are being released straight to your inbox. You can see our public events. You can check out the latest and greatest, maybe not the greatest, but at least the funnest YouTube videos and articles and resources that we drop all over the place. And the easiest way to know just about everything that's going on in my world, this world of the Hop Nerd LLC, the Hop Nerd podcast, and now the Hop Nerd Sideshow and everything else, is just to follow me on LinkedIn, Sam Goodman. You'll see my ugly mug, and it's just, you just click follow. Pretty easy, huh? Not too bad. A pretty easy way to show your love and support of everything that we've got going on here with the Hop Nerd. Well, I guess about the right place to start with just about anything like this is here's what the show is, and here's what it's about, and here are the strategic goals of my show. And I put this on my vision board to make another podcast this year, or I put this on my strategic goals of excellence to make sure that I did this year because go, grind, pod. And I don't know that the world needs more podcasts. There's a lot. I don't think that's bad, though. I think that's good. I'm a lover of podcasts, a connoisseur of podcasts. Any of us that spend much time doing anything that could use a little bit of background something, I think podcasts are great. I spend a lot of time on planes. I spend a lot of time in cars, taxis, helicopters, hay wagons, stuck in transit, trying to get where I need to go. And podcasts and audiobooks and a crap ton of music obviously help fill that void a bit. So I think the answer is yeah. I think the world probably does need more podcasts, and so this will just be a part of that. But I guess to describe to you a bit of what my vision for this show is it's just the extra. It's the behind the scenes. Ooh, behind the sceens. Ooh, it's exclusive. It's just going to be me talking about whatever I feel like talking about. Yeah, and I just keep it a bit separate from the show because, over on the main podcast, the Hop Nerd podcast, I put a bunch of this stuff in there, and I have to not put too much because I don't want it to go for 3 or 4 or 5 hours. And so this is going to be the place for the behind-the-scenes stuff, the stuff that I've got going on with the Hop Nerd as a company, the stuff that I've got going on with the podcast, the main podcast. This might be a place where we get to expand a bit on some of those ideas or some deeper thoughts on those things that we don't necessarily get to just continue down that rabbit hole on the show. It's going to be a place for guests of all kinds, special guests, really, folks that we're going to drag over onto this show to get to know them a little bit better in more of a personal sense and less of a hop and safety practitioner or leader sense, just to get to know them as folks, which I think is kind of cool. And it's going to hopefully have a bunch of folks that aren't hop folks too, or business folks, just cool people that I want you to get to know. And so it's going to be a mashup of just really whatever I feel like putting here. And I hope that you like it. I hope that you're cool with it. And I hope that you enjoy it. So if you think you're going to, I would encourage you to subscribe to it and share it if you get a chance. Again, that stuff means an absolute ton to us. Algorithm. It's the only way that people get to discover new podcasts. I know I've stumbled on those quite a bit where I'm like, how did I not hear this? Like, how did I not find this? I find that over on the main pod all the time. And I shared this over on the main episode or maybe I haven't yet. I don't know. I have to pre-record a bit. You know this because I get on planes and I can't drag all this crap with me, and I can. But then the podcast sounds like garbage because I'm like recording it into my phone, and it just doesn't work super good. We do some on-location stuff, and I make a big deal out of that because it's really neat when we can corner people. All right, when we corner people in the real world, we can throw on those cool Sportcaster headsets and, record podcasts out in the wild. But I try not to do that. Like I try to do them here. And so I do pre-record them a bit, and so I don't know. I don't know if I've told you this yet or not. And if I haven't told you, I'm going to tell you soon because I know I said it into this microphone at some point or another. But where I was going with this is I mentioned that I don't really look at podcast numbers. Like I look at them like once or twice a year. Every now and again, temptation overcomes me, right? And when you're loading in all my fellow podcaster friends out there, you're loading in your podcast into whatever thing that you're using, and they're all pretty much the freaking same. And there's always like a button that says like analytics, and I try to avoid that as much as I can. And so when I upload the pod in there, every now and again, I get over there and I click analytics and I look at it, and I know that there are a ton of folks, like an absolute crap ton of folks. Like always boggles my mind the amount of folks that are listening, the number of downloads and subscribers, and we know that stuff gets wacky. It's all just a bit of an estimate. This stuff is really, really hard to track, and even with the main podcast, I don't know like our total number of overall downloads since inception because we switched platforms a few times along the way, and I really only have the data from the last switcheroony that happened a couple years back. So I really only have the numbers for the past couple years. Anyways, I told you on the main pod, or I will in the future, that I don't really look at that stuff because I don't really care. I really don't. I don't really care. And let me maybe unpack this a bit. The first thing that I shared with you is that I try not to look at those numbers because of what I call the YouTube effect. I don't really know what it's actually called, but where you make something in a certain way on a certain topic and it like explodes, you get that viral effect that happens. And then what do? You want more of that. It's a bit of a drug. So then you constantly try to recreate that, and it influences the people that you're talking to, the things that you're talking about. It influences your style and all those things. And it reminds me of this bit of a Rick Rubin quote. I like Rick Rubin. Some people seem to hate him. Some people seem to love him. I don't know that I'm in either camp, but he shares a lot of stuff that resonates with me. It seems to feel at least like on the same wavelength of how I think about things. And I'm going to butcher this, but he said something along the lines of you can't create art for your audience. You have to create art for you. And woo, I know it's everybody's out there like, but it's true, right? I've got to create something that I'm pleased with, that I'm happy with, and I would encourage you to do the same in whatever your more artistic endeavors are. In particular, you're not painting a picture, you're not writing that song, you're not crafting a podcast or a conversation for the people that will see it, hear it. You're just not. You have to do it for you, because if you're doing it for somebody else, you're always going to be trying to cater to them. Are they going to like it all the time? Absolutely not. Do you love all the podcasts? Probably not. Do I love all the podcasts that I listen to? Absolutely not. But I'm pleased. I'm happy with everything that I've created. So that's a lot of the reason why I try to strategically avoid those numbers, is because I don't want those things to taint approach or what I think's cool or the stuff that I'm happy with or the things that bring me joy. So I try my best. To avoid those things. But I really find it interesting with viewing those numbers occasionally. I still find people all the time, right? Even within our world. And our world is kind of small. This world of hop and safety and this kind of stuff, continuous improvement and operational learning, and the stuff that we do in our business world, people constantly like, I've never heard of that. Let me go check it out. Or I found this new podcast called the Hop Nerd Podcast. Or I found these new videos. Or I found this new guy, and his name's Sam. And new is, I guess, a bit of a relative term. We've been plugging away at this thing for more than a hot minute now. So this is a long, rambly way to say that algorithm. It was a long way to say that sharing this thing helps a ton. It really does. Sharing the main podcast in particular, if you're a fan or you grow to be a fan here of the Sideshow as well, sharing that, all the little stuff with social media posts and giving us 5-star reviews and all those things. It matters, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it matters in our modern world, and it really helps us take this message farther and wider. So what I've got going on here recently, I'll give you a little bit of an update, because like we said, that's kind of the point here in the behind-the-scenes stuff. I am currently sitting at home. I literally just got back yesterday from Sacramento, California, which was an absolute hoot. Was up there kicking around, doing some stuff, and got to go spend some time with some family in that area as well, which was great. It was a blast. A quick trip. We opted to drive because it was me and Jarrell. We opted to drive because planes. That was pretty much it. Like, coming off the 4th of July, and I don't know, you've seen the news. I haven't read it, but I've been told that the news is telling me, or told us, that it is like the worst ever travel day ever. Apocalyptic. Oh my God, everything's going to... And I don't know if you flew. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So shoot me a comment or a DM or something and let me know kind of how your travel experience was in the airports. We avoided a lot of traffic. We traveled like midweek, like on the 4th of July. Got there, did some stuff, spent the weekend with some family, and drove back on Sunday. So I'm recording this. That lets you date this episode. But today is currently Monday, July 8th, and I'm going to be on a plane tomorrow to head to Cincinnati, and I will be there for the week, popping down into northern Kentucky to spend some time with some awesome folks that have been on their hop journey for, I think, about a year or so now. Working with them to continue to build some hop fluency, teaching some hop fundamentals and hop deep dives, spending some time with their champion group, having deeper conversations on operational learning. They've got operational learning up and going, which is super cool. They've been doing some really neat and novel things with operational learning and their approaches to human and organizational performance, but really just building on the groundwork that we've been laying over about the past year or so, with some more and some deeper stuff and some deeper operational learning stuff, and just building on that foundation that they've been doing a really good job of firming up over about the past year or so. I think that's a really important point to make. I always tell people it's weird. It's a weird conversation, and people always look at me like I'm a bit of a loon when I say this. But after we spend our first little bit of time together, especially with companies that are new clients for us, hold on, cold brew break. They're amped, and I get it. I've been there. We talk about this quite a bit, that me and the gang of folks that I hang around with, I can't think of a single one of us that were born. We did not come out of the womb and say, I am here to consult, baby. That's not what we did. I'm not saying that's bad. Some people, I don't know, that might be okay. But that wasn't our path, right? I mean, you guys know my path. I spent time working in fire, EMS, emergency management. I found my way into nuclear power generation. I found my way on the front end, on the sharp end, working with my hands, doing stuff that I know how to do. These hands have worked. They do work a bit. I don't think they work as good as they once did, at least in that sense. I will leave that stuff up to the subject matter experts these days. And I moved my way into the contract space in leadership and safety, continuous improvement, human performance, in the non-nuclear world, in the nuclear world, because when I say nuclear and non-nuclear, I spent a good chunk of my time in power maintenance, power construction, and power utilities, and spent a good chunk of time there doing this stuff internally before moving over to doing this stuff externally. I was kind of doing both at the same time. I had a unicorn employer at the time, and I still think that they're a unicorn employer in the sense that they mostly get it right, which is kind of That's saying a lot, I think, in our world, and especially saying a lot for safety and hot practitioners, continuous improvement folks, environmental folks, those kind of support services things. They did a really good job, at least during my last interactions with them, of taking great care of those folks and supporting those folks, and really having a pretty good understanding of what those roles were meant to do and how you support those roles and doing the things that they need to do, which is supporting folks out there doing operations, right? Folks that are out there actually doing the shit, better supporting those folks. So they did a really great job of that. And I spent a bunch of time there doing both until the Hop Nerd stuff started to outweigh the stuff that was going on there. And I had to make a choice. And the choice was to move over and do the consulting stuff full time. So I've been doing that for the past couple years full time. And for the past 4 or 5 part-time. Yeah, so that's just a roundabout way of saying that many of us, at least the folks that I work with, other hop practitioners, independent hop practitioners, hop companies, we do this stuff. We've done this stuff internally. So I understand that desire, or let me say this desire, because I don't think I've mentioned the desire yet, this desire to go ham, to go like full bore, like balls to the wall, plow ahead. Because what I was going to say is that after we spend our first time with clients, folks out there, other practitioners talking about this stuff, internal to companies, as soon as we get done, one of the last conversations we usually have a good amount of the time is, okay, what are we doing next? When are you coming back? What are we doing next? When are you coming back? What are you doing next? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Are you available next week? Can you come back? It's weird. They look at me weird when I say, okay, pause. Like, let's slow our roll here for just a second. We just talked about some stuff, especially folks newer, like brand new to this journey. We just talked about some stuff that melted some minds in your organization. We just melted some brains. I remember when, we were already trying to do stuff a bit differently. We were plugging away at doing things a bit differently. We didn't know kind of what it was called. And then once we discovered that there was this thing out here, this bit of terminology around this stuff, this at that time, a very small community of folks trying to do things a bit differently. But there was some language there. There was some information there. There was some stuff there. Once we had that stuff brought into our organization, we strategically brought that stuff into our organization through the form of speakers and workshops and stuff like that, and grew our knowledge base, and then continued to teach that stuff internally. I remember, I will mention the GOAT here, at least in my opinion. I've been told that there's a strong cringe from him when I call him the GOAT, but I think Todd Conklin is the GOAT in our world of this stuff. I remember one of the first times we brought Todd into our organization, again, working internally way back when, and melted minds. Right? The very last thing that we should do, but that we really wanted to do, was just to bring Todd back there to live. like let's do this every week. Let's do this every week. This is amazing. But we needed a pause as I slap my microphone. Sorry, I'm busting your eardrums out there. We needed a bit of a pause. And so I share this all the time, that I know it was fun. We had a blast. We had some meaningful, great conversations. We started the journey of building better underlying beliefs and assumptions. The last thing you want to do is shove that fire hose down their throat right now and crank it wide open. What you need now is to put in a bit of time for reflection and some room to think and ponder. Sounds a lot like soak time, right? Yeah. We need a bit of time to sit with this, to really sit with it for a minute. We need a bit of time for it to soak in before we just pile more on top. I really think of it as like overwatering a field, right? Or overwatering your potted plant in your living room that you need to go water. You haven't watered it. I promise. It needs water. It's dying. It's dying. While you are focused on eating healthy and all that hydration that we all do nowadays, your poor houseplant is staring at you. If it could scream, it would be screaming at you to come water it. And you should. But don't overwater it. When you pour that gallon of water, especially on soil that is a bit dry, it's going to soak up. But if you pour it too fast, immediately, it's going to just almost immediately just overflow. You have to pour it in a bit slow and then let it sink in. And then once it's kind of gone all the water that it can take, You need to let the plant use it a little bit and let that soil kind of dry just a little bit so it can take a little bit more water and then a little bit more water. And then you get on a bit of a cycle, as we probably should, of watering these things with a bit more frequency. Maybe at the right frequency is probably the best way to say that. So where I'm going to spend time with an organization that has been doing a really good job of this. I spent some time with them at the beginning of last year and then a little bit more towards the end of last year. Now we're coming back. I'm coming back. I say we a bunch because the Hop Nerd LLC, but the Hop Nerd LLC is me. It's just me, myself, and I. It's just me. I'm going back to then have these conversations with some folks that didn't quite get there in the first things. I don't mean they didn't quite get there in their underlying beliefs and just weren't available, right? So there's some new leaders and there's some new folks and there's some folks that have become champions in the meantime that weren't quite champions in the beginning and didn't quite sit in the original conversation. So we're doing some of that. And we're taking a bit of a deeper dive into operational learning and learning explorations and learning teams and all the different tools that we use there. And we're taking a bit of a dive into operational curiosity and operationally curious conversations, which if you haven't checked out the card deck, people love them. You can check this out. Just go to the website, click shop. It'll be at the very top. You can see the card decks. You can pick those up. They're a great tool. They're called starting points because that's all that they are. They're just starting points to have deeper, a bit more operationally curious conversation. So check those out if you get a chance. People love them. I only throw it in there because people constantly like these stupid cards. Crap, I like them. So they're there. They're there if it's something that you'd be interested in. But this company has done a really great job, and so many that I work with have done a really great job of tempering our expectations a bit, slowing down a little bit. Going, okay, let's do this and do it with really, instead of just throwing everything against the wall and just, we have to get everyone 100% trained and everyone has to go through the strategic HOP CBT and everyone has to go through that strategic HOP CBT and operational learning CBT before they go through the in-person HOP training. And then we've got to put them through that because if they don't, everything will suck and everything will fail. I'll look bad. I'll get in trouble with my leader because my leader above me is mad at me. And then my strategic change effort will fail and everyone will think that I'm a failure. No, just slow down, calm down. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Not everything has to be strategic change management. Slow down. Have those conversations. Yeah, get as many people in there as you can, but especially when it's your first pass at this stuff, get a bunch of people in the room and let's get them through the concepts. Let's have that conversation. Let's build a bit of an understanding, at least a bit of an awareness of these things, and then let them sit with it for a while. Let's challenge some of those underlying beliefs, some of those underlying assumptions. This isn't just like, I'm going to train you how to use this fork truck, and now you're fork truck certified. I can't just throw you in there and say, now you're HOP certified, now you have better beliefs and assumptions. And that's just not how any of this stuff works. We know this. Yeah, we know this. Slow down. Get them the information. Let them come to their own conclusions with it. Get them the information. Have the conversations. And then wait a minute. And let it soak in and let those champions start to emerge a bit, those bright spots, as we tend to call them. And you already have some of those. Pretty much everywhere that I go. I mean, let's be real. If somebody's calling me, they've usually been exposed to HOP at some point. At least somebody or a small group of folks have been exposed to HOP. And they're having that conversation, the secret squirrel conversation that I've talked about a bunch that we had internal to our organizations quite a bit, where we shut the door and we talk about the things that would normally get us fired. Yeah, the things that we couldn't talk about because of traditional approaches to things. We're like, I don't think everything's preventable. I don't know that safety is the solution to the world's problems. I don't know that beating people is the right answer. I don't think that pyramid is working out for us. I don't know, counting days, injury-free days. I don't think that's working for and on. They're already having those conversations. There's already some bright spots. But once you have those conversations in a bit of a more formal sense, and we talk HOP fundamentals, we do a bit of deep dives, what you're really starting to do is build a bit of HOP fluency. Once you start those conversations and you let it soak in and you let them start using it a bit, you know, that's what we do as people, especially when you're throwing something at me. It's like, what the heck? You've been telling me about the stupid pyramid for the past 40 freaking years. And now we're talking about everything's not now. And even in our initial conversations, we don't hold much back, but we're very cautious in how we approach those things with folks because I don't want to do crap to you. I want to go with you together. And so let's have that conversation, and we have that conversation, and then we take a minute, and we let some of those ideas soak in. You've already got your bright spots. You've got other bright spots starting to emerge, and then let's come back in and do that. Yeah, and so that's what I'm doing next week. I went into a bit of a hop rant, as I tend to do. But yeah, there we go. Going to be in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky next week. If you're around the area, let me know. If we're close enough together, I'm going to be kind of swamped. But I probably will have a bit of time in the evenings if you want to grab a nice cup of coffee. If you want to at least point me in the direction of a good cup of coffee. Because if not, I'm just DoorDashing Starbucks. You know my move. Which is funny. I'm sitting here with my cold brew, and it's not Starbucks. I've been drinking this stuff at home, at least, trying to save some cash. Because cold brew is expensive. If you don't know, it's like $5 at least. And I don't know, $5 seems like a lot. $6 seems like a lot for a cup of coffee to me. It just does. When I'm on the road, it's not nearly as bad. I will pay for the convenience. DoorDash that sucker straight to my room. It'll get there at 5 a.m. I'm up at 4 something usually when I'm traveling. I like to get up. I like to get stuff done. And be sitting outside the door when I get up, start getting ready. There's my coffee. Everything's good. Maybe a couple of those fancy pants egg white bites. I really like those things. I don't know how you feel about them, but I'm into them. I'm into them. I dig them. But here lately I've been drinking, I think it's called Wandering Bear or The Wandering Bear, and it is this extra strong coconut cold brew, and it comes in a box, like boxed wine. And I bought this deal because coffee deal, yeah, Instagram sold me. Of course it did. It always does. On like a 3-pack of this stuff, and it's been absolutely delicious. I would definitely recommend. I won't give it 10 out of 10, but let's maybe call it an 8. A quick coffee review. Maybe that's a little bit we do here on the Sideshow. But Wandering Bear Cold Brew, at least the toasted coconut variety, I would give a solid 8. It's a solid 8. I can't stand watery cold brew, and this is not watery. You know when you get cold brew coffee and it looks kind of like tea? And not good tea, like good, dark, strong tea. It's kind of like dishwater tea. It's kind of gray. When your cold brew looks like that, it's not cold brew. It's just crap. This is not that. It's definitely worth checking out. And no sponsor here or anything. You got to say that nowadays because people pay people's bills and get them to talk about stuff. We have no sponsors. At least thus far. That's what happens when you scream into a microphone like a lunatic, I guess, with no script. Not that we've ever sought them out. Never really went looking for them. Maybe a good cold brew sponsor would be the move, though. It feels like it would fit because we talk a lot about cold brew coffee in particular. But I do think maybe a bit of a cold brew section on here, ratings, recommendations. Probably pretty cool. I'm gonna scribble that into my journal right now as I take another sip of some coffee. So yeah, any cold brew recommendations you got, point me in that direction. Steak, you know what I like. After that, I'm going on vacation. So for the next few weeks, we're going on vacation. Me, Jarrell, and Avery, we're getting the heck out of the sweltering, dry Phoenix heat, and we're going to go to the muggy heat of Tennessee. Yeah, we love Tennessee. It's one of our most favorite places in the planet. You know, I grew up as a kid where I lived in Virginia. I lived about 3.5 hours or so from Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, Gatlinburg. If you're familiar with the area, you know, it's like amazing. It's cool. It's super touristy. It might not be your thing. I found it amazing. I find it amazing because I grew up in southwestern Virginia, and that was like the spot that we went to. That was like the vacation spot that we went to. You went there at least once every year, maybe a couple times a year if it was a good year, maybe once every other year if, you know, things were a little tight. That was like the main normal vacation spot for us. We did a bit of traveling, going here and there and everywhere. We were kind of fortunate to have an old Winnebago back in the day that my dad bought and fixed up. Like it wasn't like a new Winnebago or anything. It was like a fixer-upper, and he made that thing sick. And we got to drive that all over the place, different campgrounds, go fish and play in rivers, do all that kind of stuff. But the main kind of vacation, normal vacation spot for us was cruising over there. And then every 4 or 5 years, you would get together with the family and maybe take a beach trip. So that was usually out to places like Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Yeah, that was 7 or 8 hours. I can't remember, something like that. or random places out in the Outer Banks, like Nag's Head in particular, places like that. We'd get together with family, go out there. But I love it because Avery loves Pigeon Forge, and we're going there. And so I love getting to go back. And things have changed. A good amount of things have changed, but a lot has stayed the same. So it's a cool dad moment. And we've been multiple times. If she's given the option, where do you want to go on vacation? It's like Dollywood. We're going to Dollywood. Yeah. And so it's always great to get to go back and reminisce and share some of my childhood memories with her, and to see her get as pumped about the things that are still there, like Dollywood and some of just the old touristy stuff that I know I got super excited for when I was a kid. So we're doing that. Now, a good portion of that time, too, while we're there, we're staying a little bit farther back, staying up in the hills. I like getting cabins. If you've not been, the move is to go out, get on Airbnb or go through one of the cabin companies, rent a cabin, make sure that you rent a cart. You're going to need it. Even though they do have a really great trolley system if you're staying down on the strip. So I've not been on them in a minute. But when I was going, it was like a nickel or a quarter. Like, it was cheap to ride the trolley, and you could catch the trolley from their stops all up and down the strip in Pigeon Forge. They would take you to the main station. If you wanted to go to Gatlinburg, you could catch the Gatlinburg trolley, or you could go to Dollywood, or they had some other lines. And I'm sure that has expanded since I last rode on their trolley system. But I would encourage you to get a car, because there's just so much to do, from cruising over to Cades Cove and looking at the wildlife, to driving up to Gatlinburg if you're staying in Pigeon Forge, or driving from Gatlinburg to Pigeon Forge if you're staying in Gatlinburg, from Dollywood and the water parks and just all the stuff. There's tons and tons and tons of stuff, pretty much all of it crazy family friendly. And then staying back in the mountains, you get the mountain retreat as well, which is what I'm really looking forward to. Like, I'm really pumped for the mountain retreat side of things. It's just go out, get a little cabin. You can get wild cabins. We tend to go somewhere in between. Yeah, if it's got a pool table, that's great, because that's always fun. A hot tub, even better. Yeah, even better. But if not, totally cool with that. As long as I've got a good view from a nice porch. I like to go look at the bears. It's fun. I like to look at the sunrise and the sunset, and a coffee pot, and sometimes a grill. If a grill is a nice move. That's definitely a nice move, too. So we're going to be doing that for at least the next 10 or so days. And then I'm taking a little bit of chill time after that just to recover. And then things are stacking up to be pretty wild late summer and fall season. My falls are usually when things get crazy. Spring and fall, the wildest of times for us, which is good. You guys seem to need a lot of what we do in the spring and the fall. And I don't know that you need it right then. You probably could use some of it during the summer, but summer, for whatever reason, and I think I know the reason, people are going on vacation, people are going there. It's summer. It's summer. And then we know you get to December, and December doesn't exist on our work calendars because Christmas. Yeah, Thanksgiving seems to not interrupt too much, because I book days all the way up until like the day before Thanksgiving sometimes. But yeah, after vacation, we'll be right back at it. And I've got a few public events coming up. So I'm going to be in Iowa sometime in September. I'm going to be in Arizona at sometime in September. Both of those are public conferences. And we're working on putting together something for you maybe in October and potentially also in November. So more opportunities to come hang out. If you come hang out in Iowa, or you come hang out in Arizona, which is weird. I don't do a lot of stuff in my backyard, but it's always great to. It's always great to get to. If you come hang out at either of those are both going to be keynotes. If you come hang out, if the October thing happens, and then maybe if the November thing happens, come hang out, and we're going to do some workshops. And it's not just going to be me. It's going to be me and at least a couple other folks, or another person. And we're looking at doing those things here in the South Coast. Doing things here more West Coast-ish, so Southwest-ish. And as we're just pulling together some of the basic stuff to see if it makes sense, see if schedules work, see if it works for you guys, see if it works for all of us. And if it does, I'll let you know. And again, the easiest way to know about those things is to go to the website, thehopnerd.com, go to the bottom, click join the mailing list, and you will see it as I send out almost always weekly emails, unless I forget, and that will happen. It does happen. But make sure you sign up, and you will see the dates on those events and all those things. Yeah, and I don't have it pulled up in front of me, so I'm not going to tell you the events. Go to my LinkedIn, and you'll see it. I've posted about it a bunch. or once you just subscribe to the mailing list, it'll get sent to you. Super duper easy peasy, lemon squeezy. What else has happened? Well, I've got to say that one thing that's really been going on with me here lately is, as you know, I have a few things that keep me running. I run on cold brew coffee, which we've already mentioned. I also run on red meat, which I mentioned a bunch, like steak. I love, so the move steak for me, bone in, ribeye, at least medium rare, and preferably rare. It's according to where I'm going and kind of what's going with it. But bone in, ribeye, always move. But the last thing that I typically run on is Zen. Zen. I'm very transparent about my my love for nicotine, and so for many years, I used smokeless tobacco. I dipped, and I say smokeless because sometimes I say dip, and people are like, "What's dipping?" And I think most of you know what dipping is, and especially if you're around construction and in my world, power generation, it was just kind of a thing. So every time I would quit, it would just be like right there. So I'm like, "Yeah, of course, give it to me." So eventually, over the several years ago, I moved towards trying to get into a little less harmful options for nicotine. Yeah. And I moved to Zen, but recently it's been super hard to get, and I've been having to try like Rogue and a couple of these other tobacco-free nicotine pouch type variants. And I'm a Zen wintergreen person. Zen wintergreen 6 milligram. That's me. I like it. It floats my boat, especially when you mix that with a little bit of caffeine. That's the move, right? I mean, a little caffeine, a little nicotine, rock and roll, baby. I mean, that's about as hard as I party nowadays. But boy, I party with it. Like, I like it, and I like it a lot. But it's got hard to get, so I was ordering online because I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. I don't like going around like these little smoke shops and stuff. It's just hard to like find it in a gas station or find it in a different place. So I was ordering a bunch, and then I guess with the there's like a lawsuit out of Washington D.C. based on online sales and this and that and the other and production delays, and I have no clue. But it's been really hard. Really hard to get. So that's been a bit of a nightmare. That's been a bit of a nightmare. But speaking of things that are not nightmares, I haven't talked about this on the main pod at all, but I'll talk about it here. I got to meet up with Ben Goodhart, and if you're not following Ben Goodhart, you should over on LinkedIn. He posts a ton of really great stuff, but we got to meet up, and it was super cool. He was in Phoenix doing some stuff, and the stars aligned, and I was in Phoenix that weekend as well. So we got to meet up on, I think it was a Sunday, and we kind of met in the middle. We met up in downtown Phoenix, and we went to a really great spot called Taco Guild. And if you don't know Taco Guild, a place you should probably go. You should probably go when you're in Phoenix. Now, it's like fancy pants tacos. And I don't know that I put real tacos and fancy pants tacos in the same category, because real tacos are real tacos. And real tacos are always king. Yeah. And if you don't know the difference between real tacos and fancy pants tacos, I'll let you discover that on your own. But real tacos are always the move. But fancy pants tacos are nice as well. But tacos to me are kind of like pizza. I don't know that there's a such thing as that bad taco. There are tacos that are worse and tacos that are better. But I will always eat tacos. Yeah, it's like pizza. There's pizza that's not all that great, and there's pizza that's mind-blowing. But I'll eat either end of that spectrum. I might complain while I'm eating the one that doesn't taste all that great, but I'm still going to eat it because it's freaking pizza. It's freaking tacos. Of course I'm going to eat it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But Taco Guild is where we met, and we had some fancy pants tacos. They have an impressive tequila menu, or an array of stockpile, just a massive wall of tequila, and all those different things. And it was just it was a hoot. It was just an absolute blast. And I love this community because of stuff like that. It's so easy, and I do this too. And that's why I'm so overt and just saying, hey, I'm going to be here. Because it's so easy to just not see each other. It's like the easiest to not see each other. I am a creature of habit. When I am on the road, when I am traveling, and when I'm on the road, what I'm thinking about is, okay, how do I perform at my best while I'm spending time with the clients that I'm spending time with? And what that usually and not just that, but how do I survive and live somewhat of a normal life? Because that's hard. It's hard when you do it every week. And I, like so many of you, we do this a lot. So how do you make being away from home as close to being at home as you can? And the way that I do that is I try my best, at least, to maintain some semblance of my routine. And I try my best not to just go too wild and out when I go out, right? When I'm traveling, I get there, I get to the hotel, I drop my bags, I change into workout clothes. I usually go downstairs and find whatever like crappy gym is there. And some have some pretty awesome ones and some have some not so good ones. And I do something. I move. Like I try my best to move, even if I've flown that day, even if, and it's working. I've lost 10 pounds so far, so that's been pretty helpful. I try my best to eat pretty decent. And part of that for me is I try my best to recover and do all these things too. So part of my recovery is using the convenience of things like DoorDash. And again, no sponsorship. And DoorDash, come on, I'm here. I use you a lot. You have taken most of my money. But I try to find healthy options on there, and I order food and I order coffee. And I don't like being the person sitting in a restaurant eating by myself. It just doesn't work for me. I can't do it. I will get the thing and eat it in my car before I sit out there at the bar or at a table by myself. Is anyone else going to join you today? You're always looking like the person that got stood up for a date, which is even worse for me because I have a husband and I'm wearing a wedding ring and they're like, your husband stood you up? Or even worse, what are you doing here? You're on a date and so you're good. You got stood up. And it's none of the above. It's, I'm by myself because I'm traveling for work and everybody's like, oh. So no, I try my best to avoid those things. Now, the problem with that is you get in that routine and that routine is mostly good, but we miss a lot of opportunities to spend time together. And so it was really cool when Ben was here that we got to spend that bit of time together and we got to hang out. We spent 3 or 4, maybe even 5 hours. I don't know. But Ben, you'll have to let me know because I lost track of time in a really good way of just having normal people conversations and talking about stuff and talking a little bit about Hop and the community and kind of all those things, just getting to know each other. And it was an absolute blast. And that's back to the point of the reason why I share where I'm going to be is number one is that. Number two is if you need help and I'm in your town, I'm already there. Just send me an email. I can change flights. I can come spend some time with you, your organization, your folks, super duper easy. Let me know. But again, the main thing being that opportunity to just chat, to just meet up. Like, hey, I live like 15 minutes from where you're at. You want to grab coffee in the morning before you head over? Or let's grab food. If you get a bit of free time, let me know. I know this restaurant. Let's hang out. Let's talk Hop. Let's not talk Hop. Let's just, we're part of this community. Let's just be friends. I do that. I'm trying my best to do that as much as I possibly can. And I've been doing that as much as I possibly can. And I would encourage you to do that too. And if I'm going to be in your neck of the woods or we're going to overlap, lay over, or be working in the same cities, let me know. We'll definitely make it happen. We might even record a pod if, I have the stuff with me or you have podcast stuff with you. We can always do that. At the very least, we'll have a cool conversation and we'll maybe get a steak and definitely get some coffee and definitely take a Hop selfie and do all those things. Yeah, absolutely we will. This world is so small in a good way now too, where we get to know each other really, really well online, but we rarely get to see each other face to face. A random conference here or there. And then there's this really big agenda where it's like, okay, like we just like wave in and pass and say, oh, it's great to meet you. It's great to meet you. And we don't get a lot of that time together to just sit and talk. And that's what I'm here for, man. That's my favorite part of all this stuff. If I go to a conference, my favorite part of the conference isn't the conference, it's the hang. When I spend time in organizations, we do some really great work and we have some amazing conversations. But even with those conversations, the conversations that happen in the margin between the sessions, in the hang before and after, and the hang that happens in the middle, even at lunchtime, like the hang, that's where it's at. That's where we get to let our hair down and talk about this stuff as normal people. And I think I do a great job of that in the conversations that we have, but it's still a formal conversation. When we get to let our hair down and just hang and just be people and just talk about this peoply stuff as people and all of our peopliness, it's not only fun, it's not only a hoot, but it's powerful. And so I love it. I absolutely love it. You know how to get in contact with me, thehopnerd@gmail.com. I pretty much always, as much as I can, I post where I'm going, where I'm at. I try my best to share it in the check-in. So again, follow along, sign up for the check-ins, the mailing list. But yeah, it's been an absolute whirlwind of a year so far. And I really appreciate you joining and hanging out for this little bit of the Sideshow. I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but I'm going to try to do these twice a month, roughly, because we're doing weekly episodes with the main pod. And so I'm shooting for once, twice a month with this, at least twice. I think 2 is the sweet spot. That's just what I'm thinking right now. That has a high probability of changing at some point. And you know this, if you've been following along for a minute. I'm not going to get all of them. Like, I'm going to miss one. You're going to get 1 a month. Once you're going to get 4 1 month. You're going to get 2 1 month. But it's mostly going to be 2. I mean, the average is going to be 2 per month ish. So if you don't want to miss an episode, make sure that you subscribe. And please do me a favor. This is a brand new part of the show. So scroll down, and whatever you're listening to us in, however you do this in whatever you're listening to us on, leave us 5 stars. It helps an absolute ton. It helps us get this thing going strong out of the gate, spread this message farther, a little bit wider, to bring this message of humanizing our approaches. I was going to say to safety, but really overall, this message of human and organizational performance. It helps us take that a bit farther. So leave us that 5-star review. Share it anywhere that you can share stuff, and go over to the main pod. And if you haven't left us that 5-star review there, make sure that you do that. That's an absolute free way, just a few seconds of your time, to support everything that we've got going on here. And it means the absolute world to us. If you're looking for another way to support us, you can go over to the merch shop. Again, I told you, we don't have any sponsors. We don't do anything with sponsors, at least not yet. Cold brew folks, cattle associations. I consume a lot of red meat. Zen, I don't know. That might, if I start getting sponsored by, I don't know if tobacco, it's not tobacco. I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know if nicotine products can do sponsorships. I don't know what the laws and regulations are there. But anything that's not like, hey, here's my safety product, go sell it for me. Anything, I guess, the stuff that I actually use. I think that's probably the rule that I'm trying to put out here. That will be a personal rule, I think. We never really sought out sponsorships, and I'm not going to start seeking out sponsorships. But the only rule is that if you ever hear of any sponsorships, they will be things that I actually use. How about that? And I know the platform that I'm using for this, I think they throw in a little bit of commercials here or there. So that's not me. Just to let you know, that's not me. It's just what this platform does. So you might get like hey, have you been to Kroger lately? I don't know. I've just noticed it with some other podcasts that are on this platform as well. So if you get those, again, not me. But where I'm going is, if you're looking for a cool way to support the pods in particular, a great way to do that is just go to the merch shop. We've been putting out some really slick designs, and people that we've been working with to design some of this stuff, they are some of the coolest artists that I've ever got to work with. And it's a great way to not only support the show, but then we take a good chunk of that and reinvest it into those artists to produce more designs for us, and more designs for us, and more designs for us. And those things ain't cheap, and nor should they be. These folks are amazing. So it's a great way to have a bit of an impact, not only here at the show, to show your love and support here, and to keep the lights on here on the podcast and everything else that we do, kind of in producing free resources and videos and this show and the main show. But then again, we spend that money to then produce cool things through amazing artists that then you get to pick up, you get to purchase, you get to wear, which I don't know. I just think that's cool. It's just absolutely cool. And if you have designs or anything that you want to share, podcast inspired art, we've been talking about this on the main pod quite a bit. We can definitely want to see that. And we'll definitely, more than likely, unless it's just out there, which I'm okay with. But so it's going to have to reach the far ends of out there. We'll usually use it as a podcast cover. So, you'll see the podcast cover change, and a lot of that is art, from these artists, from folks that are sending us art, or things that I'm doodling or Avery's doodling or things like that. So with all of that being said, like, share, subscribe, do all the algorithm things. And until next time, here on the Hop Nerd Sideshow, I'll see you next time. It's Sam Goodman signing out. Love you. Mean it. Bye. Thanks for listening in, everybody. Cruise over to the website, www.thehopnerd.com. Scroll to the bottom, click join the mailing list, and definitely do that. Follow along everywhere that you can follow along, like Instagram or the platform formerly known as Twitter. It's the Hop Nerd on Instagram, the Hop Nerd 1 on X. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for brand new videos around hop and a bunch of other stuff. LinkedIn, make sure that you're following me on LinkedIn, Sam Goodman, and the Hop Nerd LLC and the Hop Nerd podcast page. And if you need a hand with human and organizational performance, operational learning, and everything in between, the website, or just send me an email, thehopnerd@gmail.com.